6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. I'm Chris at Lightforce, joined virtually as always by the extraordinarily and fully snacked Anna Forsyth at A4603. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. I am fully snacked. I had an apple.
Extraordinarily and fully snacked.
Yeah.
If you are a patron of our show, you would have tuned in to Instead of the Anthems, our Patreon-only pre-show, and you would have learned that Anna had a snack prior to this show because of, the lack of snacks prior to the last show, contributing to some troubles.
Anyway, yeah. So I'm not going to tell you which kind of apple. You have to become a patron and see for yourself.
It's one of the benefits of supporting us, right? Stuff like that. You don't get this anywhere else. I also want to, call to something that a friend of the show, Nexus, one of our longest patrons said, we are the two best podcast hosts in Vancouver. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to start tagging us as the longest running, best mediocre with the best podcast hosts in Vancouver.
We didn't say it. Nexus said it.
That's good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of good enough for me, it's been the Canucks' effort over the course of the past week.
That's generous in some cases.
Okay. So we'll get into it, obviously, over the course of our show. But, I mean, you got to consider in the past week, like, since we recorded a show, it's not been bad.
I mean, it's been better, for sure. And 2 wins out of 3.
Anna, why are you so negative?
I know. Sorry. Playoff positive points. All of that. Yeah, none of them against divisional rivals, but what can you do?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is funny. I was just prepared to come into this show and say, like, look, we won against New York, but it's the same problems again and again with the special teams. And then the Dallas Stars game happened.
That's right. It's like here. So I'm going to read the rundown that Anna prepared verbatim. After a week of similar problems that fit our narrative, Canucks go and spoil it all by doing something stupid like winning. Is the power play back? Is Speedy back? Are all of our problems gone forever? Plus an update on the Blackhawks saga and how the league, the PA, and owners move forward.
I mean, I was pleased with this rundown this week. I've had fun with it. But yeah, all the Canucks problems are gone.
Yep. Well, let's start talking about why. Now, if you excuse yourself and were to say, I actually only watched one game this week, and I watched the Vancouver Canucks beat the Dallas Stars, what are you getting on about? How could we blame you? The Canucks go down early, right? I mean, not good, but this is a team that, never stops fighting, battles for an entire 60 minutes of a hockey game, up to 65 if necessary. And when special teams is out there, produces points at will. So what are you complaining about? Well, see, this is the thing. If you go back one game prior to that, when the Nashville Predators happened to be in town, that was a slightly different Vancouver Canucks team that we saw. And if you go back to the win over the New York Rangers, there is a 45-second spell that is, I think, the epitome of the Vancouver Canucks season to this point. And yet, despite that, they won.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the hockey equivalent of win-vis is, which you have in cricket, where it changes after every ball as to the percentage that each team has of winning. I dread to think what it looked like when Canucks were facing the wrong end of a 5-on-3 with like a tied game with however long to go. What was it, 45 seconds? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think like I ballpark 45 seconds, but
yeah, it was scary.
I mean, let's see. You have what appears to be every Canuck player on the ice going Alex Edler. You got your hot goaltender who has no glove and lost his stick and is trying to like call for Thor's hammer because at that point, if Molnir doesn't come, he's done for. Like, and yet the Canucks, like, that's what good teams find a way to make it happen. So they're a good team.
Maybe they're getting there, and winning ugly was like the first step to like getting somewhat on track again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like when we look at this game, and the Vancouver Canucks were playing listless hockey for the first two periods against the Rangers. Like it wasn't inspired whatsoever. The New York Rangers, after two periods, they're up 2-0. I mean, and to this point, the Vancouver Canucks have not looked good at home whatsoever. Like if you were concerned and calling for heads to roll at this point, it was somewhat understood. Yes, I still think a little premature, but that said, I could totally see why people were calling this out. But then the third period rolls around, and I don't know what happened during that second intermission, but you got JT Miller going and notching one early to pull within one, and then you got Vasily Podkolzin. I tried to pull Stan Smil there, and Pods notches another within what 3.5, 4 minutes, and suddenly the game is tied, and the Vancouver Canucks are like, "Oh man, this is what this feeling's like. This is what we did on the road, guys. Hey, we can do this."
Yeah, and it's funny, like all the players have talked about how great it is to have fans back, but we didn't really see the effect of that until that game, and I thought it was funny that the players were saying that the barn was like the loudest they'd ever experienced, and I was just like, well, maybe that's because they haven't had a home playoff series in 5 years. Because obviously excluding the bubble, which no fans were around for, so maybe it's not shocking.
But, what did we see out of that game? While the team was listless, there was one player who was determined to never let the game get out of reach, and that was Thatcher Demko. And we've talked about that on this show. Every podcast, all 137 of them, have probably suggested this team, rides or dies on the shoulders of Thatcher Demko. And Thatcher did not disappoint. Like if there is anything actually in this past week you need to go back and watch, Brock Besser's empty net goal, because he does it the hard way, might be one of them.
Yeah, that was fun.
It's that sequence of events where Thatcher's without a glove, without a stick, reaching for Molnir.
Although
I think he made a save with his head.
Although there was another phenomenal save in the game against the Stars. So, really,
true.
If you've missed out, there's a few sequences you should
get
around.
Like, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh my God, no way he made that save. And then they're talking about, oh no, it went off the post. And then they show the replay, and I'm like, I don't think it hit the post. I think he got that.
But it was funny. I mean, even obviously the game I went to was the loss in the middle, like obviously.
Oh, so you're the problem.
Yeah. But you made some really good saves in that too. But there was a moment where I thought, and I did tweet this out, yeah, this is the power play for Vancouver, so maybe we shouldn't be cheering our own goalie during that time. Like, that should not be a thing that's happening. And it happened a few times.
You should be cheering for your goaltender at any point. Your goaltender deserves it, especially if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan.
You should not have to.
However,
yes,
you're
exactly.
Well, so this is the thing. You watch this Nashville game, and there's people out there listening, and they're like, Anna, you're so negative. Be more like Chris and be positive. The Canucks had a lead. If a few bounces had gone their way and the rest weren't trying to screw the Canucks by giving them power plays.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about this game is that despite the Canucks being up 2-1 at, essentially the midway point of the second period, I was not comfortable. It was like, oh man, this isn't feeling quite right. Sure enough, only a couple minutes later, it's a tie game, and then just a nice late special teams goal in the second to seal that deal, and suddenly the Predators took those points and ran. But like, it's the listlessness of this effort. Like, I think that was the struggle, is that we know that the Vancouver Canucks are defensively an entertaining team.
Yep.
And thankfully, the goaltending they're getting right now is allowing this entertaining team or this entertaining blue line to make do. Where we're starting to see the Canucks maybe eke out success is the offense does seem to be starting to find its groove. We're starting to see special teams. I mean, this entire homestand, they hadn't scored a power play goal. In fact, it was like 0 for a million.
I think it was 0 for a million. Yeah, I think that's the right stat.
Right. And what was interesting, outside of no chasing on the first power play unit, was that they were moving the puck around fast against Dallas. And I don't know if it was that Dallas was playing them soft. It didn't appear to me that was the case, but the Canucks were actually moving the puck around quickly. I still feel too much perimeter. Like, you could tell they were either trying to get on PD's stick or they were just going to throw it around real quick. But at least the speed showed some confidence. And, hey, they did score a couple.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Harmon Dials for pulling up this quote for the Armies, but JT Miller said at practice at media availability that day that the problem was speed and not shooting the puck. And lo and behold, do it. Make those fast decisions and get that puck off your stick quicker, and good things happen.
The thing about this game against the Stars, there was a moment where it was Petey and was it Miller? I can't remember who he was going in on a 2-on-1 with. The puck is on Petey's stick, and I'd commented in C4 Discord in the game day chat, and I'd said there's no reason why on a 2-on-1 with Petey having the puck on a stick that there is not an opportunity generated. I understand that a defenseman may make a good play, they may block the shot, but the fact that Petey essentially ran out of options because it was quite obvious he was thinking pass until he was at the goal line, at which point he wondered if maybe he could pass it still. Like, you could sort of see either he was thinking pass the whole way and the defenseman took it away from him, or two, he was never thinking shoot and the defenseman was like, I know this, so I'm going to take the pass. Like, it was just throw the puck on the net. This is how you will find you'll generate opportunity and chances. And Petey needs to generate opportunities and chances. He's turned into Henrik Sedin.
Yeah, I think, like JT said in his interview, clearly they know the issues, but knowing what you're doing wrong and actually doing the right thing doesn't always translate. It's the first step, but you have to also get out of your head. And as the power plays got worse and worse, you could see them getting stuck in the head, and it was just losing confidence. So hopefully this is the stepping stone to get it back, right? Right.
And at first, that first period, early goal from the Stars, this being on, or not early goal, let me phrase that, a special teams goal, but that early sort of first period goal that puts the team behind. But the Vancouver Canucks decided that they weren't going to go and sort of approach it as they had in previous home games, where they wait until the third period before suddenly realizing, oh my goodness, we're going to have to actually generate some offense here. They did it all in the second. And Dallas was kind enough to continue to go to the penalty box to ensure that the Vancouver Canucks could get practice in special teams. JT Miller scores a beauty in the power play early in the period to tie it up. And then Petey finally notches a goal, and it was a good shot from not the point, but sort of middle of the ice, above the circles. It's the type of goal we're used to seeing from Pettersson.
Right.
And while the Bo Horvat goal wasn't a power play marker, it was what we've seen from Bo a few times early this season, where he's now starting to assert himself on the ice, much to the, again, chagrin of Nexus and others who aren't big fans of Horvat. But the Canucks now have themselves a 3-1 lead. And even when the Stars scored soon after Bo did, I was like, oh man, that happens. You just took your foot off the gas. You understand defense is optional. We know this. Let's not worry. The offense is hot. And Pods were to, go and get that goal back a few minutes after that. So, I mean, again, how can you not be happy with the Vancouver Canucks effort? They had 3 games over the course of the week since our last show. They got points 2 out of 3. Of those 2 that they got points, they were both wins. The one game that went to overtime is an Eastern team, so what does it matter? This is a playoff team, Anna.
I mean, obviously positives, and it's definitely building blocks. But yes, obviously the lingering problem remains that one part of special teams might be solved or is on the lead doing better, but there's that whole penalty kill thing.
So I think the problem with the penalty kill is the fact that you have this entertaining blue line.
Yeah.
I mean, I should put it all on the defensive, allotment, but there was a conversation that happened during the broadcast. I think it was the radio broadcast I was listening to, but during the Nashville game, is at what point do you consider putting some of your more offensive forwards onto the penalty kill? Because if you're struggling to get the puck out of the zone, or you have sort of this defensive struggle, might one of the better ways to defend to be that sort of, we have to respect who's on the ice because they could go and punish us on the penalty kill. Like, I think, I'm not trying to go and say Brendan Sutter is the solution to all of this, but Sutter had a knack of scoring and contributing on the PK, right? Like he was tenacious in that sort of upfront, higher pressure approach. And I kind of wonder if you do, maybe not go full Tortorella, where you get the Sedins out there, shift in, shift out, Kessler and Burrows out there, shift in, shift out. Like you balance it, but I kind of wonder if it's not worth some experimentation.
Well, I mean, obviously, if Brandon Sutter is healthy, he's on the penalty kill tomorrow. But I do think that's what they're trying with JT Miller. But I think, like the power play, it may not be a personal issue, even though we kind of talked about that last week. But it's the way they play it. It's giving shooting lanes and just a ton of space to the offensive teams, and is the way to fix that putting more aggressive forwards on that? I don't know.
No, I don't think. Yeah, the more aggressive forward or the offensive mindset is not going to solve give these shooting lanes and loss of space. But I genuinely wonder if the allowance of shooting lanes is due to confidence in your goalkeeper.
Which is not a good thing. It's great to have confidence in your goaltender, but give him a break. Stop making. I mean,
he's young.
That just says, I think he said today that he doesn't go for acrobatic saves or spectacular saves. He just does the save that needs doing, and however that comes out, great.
Well, no, I mean, and that's fair. I think some of the best goaltenders don't go out there to make the acrobatic saves. They just make the save that needs to be made. The problem is the way the Vancouver Canucks are providing opportunities. Acrobatics is the nice to have skill that you have on your LinkedIn profile. I kid you not, I follow Thatcher on LinkedIn, and hobbies, acrobatics.
I mean, that is helpful. Yeah, because you often say in football, right? If a goalie's making spectacular saves all the time, it probably means he's in the wrong position. But with a hockey goalie, it's not as straightforward as that. And the reason he might be Thatcher might end up in the wrong position now and again is because he's expecting his defense to do something other than slide across the ice.
What are you talking about? That's perfectly all right. That's how you defend. You're blocking see, this is the thing. they're blocking those low shots so Thatcher can focus on jumping and flipping for the high ones.
Right, okay.
It's
I just
big,
think
wrinkly
that
brain stuff here.
it's November. It's early November. And this does not seem like a sustainable model. I know we've depended on it for the last, to be generous, last 4 years.
Ever.
But, like, more realistically, beyond that.
It ultimately, so long as we've had Green into the latter part of Desjardins, it is required a hot goaltender to be a team that is successful. Like, even in the bubble, people weren't talking about the Vegas Golden Knights getting Petterssoned.
Yeah.
They got Demko'd, right? Like,
yeah.
And who got the Canucks to that point before Demko had to come into Demko? Markstrom.
And where did their season almost fall apart? When Louis Domingue, like their very unexperienced goaltender, had to come in. Like, and Markstrom, Demko wasn't quite there yet. Like, if the pandemic hadn't hit, that would have been the end of the Canucks season. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah, it's just, you're right. Maybe the sustainability isn't, possible. And it sort of goes into your sort of final point that we're going to talk about on Rewind is like, how long can this team, make this happen? I think for the Vancouver Canucks to be successful, the entire season, as sad as it might be said, I think it's going to require a combination of Demko and Halak, because I can't imagine Demko puts in 80% of the games standing on his head, blindfolded, balancing, and reciting poetry while making epic saves. It's just, I don't see any other way. The blue line is not going to figure itself out. I think it is what it is.
I mean, obviously, the blue line is better than we thought in some respects. I mean, OEL's playing well. Yeah, you just wonder if the pairings that we have right now, would it get even worse if we changed it? I don't even really know.
I don't think the pairings make all that much difference at this point. Like, I mean, you have a penalty kill that you win a face-off on, and your quote-unquote top blue liner goes and doesn't whiff the puck. Like, I would have been forgiving if Myers had whiffed the clearing attempt where he throws it around the boards. Because, sometimes that happens. To simply, I'm just going to toss it this direction and, see if it works. That's a problem. Like,
he's chaos. He's chaos. Like,
this wouldn't have happened if he was a winger, because he wouldn't have been on the ice, or if he was, he wouldn't have been in that position. It would have been another blue line.
He is a winger, and his guys, we know this, so that he wants it so much. Yeah, obviously last night we had Kyle Burroughs playing on his offside, which wasn't ideal. I don't know if he has that experience to do that. Hamonic hasn't been super since coming back. He's obviously out of practice, and skating a ton doesn't help. And then we've got our two best defensive forwards out, probably in Mott and Sutter, but Mott's pretty close to coming back as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
But that's not going to turn around the season.
No, I mean, if your defensive-minded forwards aren't going to go and solve your entertaining blue line, they're going to give you a good combination when the third or fourth line comes out. That's like, I feel that the reliance will be on hot goaltenders. There's no other way. Like, it's just, unless some mind-blowing trade takes place and Jim can work a miracle. It is what it is. Like, I think, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but it should, let's say Demko need to take some games off. I have confidence in Halak's ability, but is Halak going to give us the same level of play that Demko has? Because that's what's going to be needed. And this is not to knock him in the effort that we've seen on the few games he's played in so far. But
do you think it's kind of a vicious circle in that they're wanting Halak to play less because Demko is hot, and they're worried they won't get the same level of goaltending? But Halak not being in game shape and not getting a run of games is meaning when he does step in, he's not up to standard? Or is that too negative?
No, I think it's fair because you don't take the hot goaltender out. Demko is playing hot, right? I mean, if Demko is pitching shutouts, he ain't coming out until he goes and lets in a goal. And he's not pitching shutouts, but trust me, I would forgive him for the few that do get by him at this point, considering the number of sure things he stops.
Yeah.
Now, when Halak comes in, I don't have the same level of confidence that we're going to get the same sort of acrobatic style of goaltending that we get from Demko. Not that should be a requirement, but with the team that's in front of him, it's nice to have. It's the good hobby to have listed on your LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm.
And I've yet to see that on the Halak. So I think, if Demko can continue to string together the miracle work that he has been putting in, there is no reason why this Vancouver Canucks team doesn't find success. Is it sustainable? No.
Yeah. I mean, just even from a fatigue point of view, he's going to need a rest sooner or later.
Yeah, he can rest in the playoffs because
healthy all year.
The way things are being described to me, if the Vancouver Canucks make the playoffs, that's a win. Everything else is, a cherry on top. This is actually a good segue. We have a new segment we're going to start working on, and I thought we could make the transition here. It is called Game Changer. And what the premise is that we're going to find and discuss one thing that we want to change about hockey. So one thing. Now, it's going to be something small or precise, like a rule, not like change hockey culture, because that's like an entire episodic series of podcasts.
Yeah.
And this is
we want that too, but
yeah. This is more segment based. So, Anna, you had written a good note and you wanted to talk off about the goalie equipment stoppage rule. I presume this has something to do with Molnir possibly coming into play to help out or
yeah. I mean, so if Demko didn't know the rule, I don't know why us normals would be expected to know it. So I did look up the rule after Demko spoke in the press conference saying he checked with the referee. The referee said it's helmets only. And then if you look at the rule, it's not even every time the helmet comes off. Because it has to do with whether there's a goal opportunity for the attacking team. To me, the fact that play can continue if that puck goes anywhere near Thatcher's hand, that's breaking it. 100%. If the puck hits his leg without a pad on, that's probably breaking your leg too. So yes, I think it's super important to focus on the head is the most important thing given the concussions, but to me, with the amount of stoppages play has, the net moves slightly, that's a stoppage, but I don't think this is, if the rule becomes abused, sure, make some adjustments, but I don't think you're going to see goalies throwing off their gloves just to make a stoppage. I really don't.
So, okay, before I share my thoughts, if a player any skater loses a glove, their expectation is off to the bench they go. I believe the league has actually changed it so that when a skater loses gear, off to the bench they go. Or I think they can still immediately pick it up and put it on, but it's not like the old days where if you lost your gloves, you just skated around holding your stick, or if your helmet popped off, you skated around the ice showing off your flow. Off to the bench you go. That changes when you get to the goalkeeper. So I think the point that you're raising is fair, because right off the bat, you have inconsistency as to how you're treating the safety of skaters over the course of the goaltenders. The big difference is the goaltender, I'm not expecting skates to the bench because now you have obviously an open net, but are they not in a dangerous position that ultimately need additional protection to be afforded to them? I completely agree. Where I feel the NHL has the difficulty in doing this is that some of the most shrewd goaltenders will know how, their gear can be set up in such a way that when they go and they make that crazy, acrobatic double flip, sow cow save, that their glove magically starts flying off. And often those saves happen when it's been crazy for a while and, a stoppage might be needed. I just feel there are far too many goaltenders that will take advantage of that. Now, I think a way to somewhat solve this is a tie down system of some sort, like looking at a way to better secure the gear.
Yeah.
Right. Like jerseys previously, jerseys could come up with wild abandon. They are tied down, right? They can, there are things that are being used, like straps. It used to be like the strap that one might have on a helmet. It was for show if you had a strap on it, right? And this is on the skater side. I think there are things about the only thing you're right that a goaltender will have the whistle blown for is when the mask comes off. And I've actually found that referees have been really quick to whistle that.
They have, in fairness, even though the rule is somewhat dubious.
Yeah,
refs have been pretty good. And
I think, and this is goaltenders, they're just shrewd characters.
Goalies are weird. Goalies are
Mike Smith.
We all know that. Oh, yeah, but
what would Mike Smith do with that opportunity?
But he's already breaking the rules and getting away with it.
Yeah, exactly. So the moment this happens, this rule that you've changed occurs, Mike Smith is like, man, Anna Forsyth be getting a Christmas card from me this year.
For one, I would say don't shape the rules around people breaking them. Is the how have I forgotten the word for diving? What's the word?
Simulation?
Simulation. Thank you. It's not the simulation rule that's at fault. It's Mike Smith flopping. And
can you imagine?
Referees
not only will Mike Smith flop, now that the gear coming off can stop play, it'll be like someone blew him up. He'll have been detonated and gear will be flying into the stands. Someone's going to get a free blocker. Can you imagine?
Yeah, whether the equipment gets inspected, at the start of every period, and if you get caught, you just don't get to adjust your equipment during a game. I don't know, but I
like what you're saying.
Feel we need to protect them.
I agree. I may be playing advocate for the devil here in how I sort of approach this, but
there will definitely need to be accommodations made so that it's not going to be exploited. But I think the bigger worry here is the injury point of view, and I just think it will be less if we end up at a position where it's happening once a game. That's too much because equipment doesn't come off once a game. It happens once every 5 to 10 games, right? Not even. Then we would have to look at it again. But I really don't think it'll end up there. But who knows? Okay. Goalies, as we know, are voodoo.
They are pure voodoo. Speaking of what else is voodoo, it's the break we're about to take. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast from Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He can play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
I have to admit, I only saw sort of a couple of quotes. I did not have the opportunity to read up or hear about John Doe 2's mother to TSN. This is in regards to, for those who've been following our show, the situation with the Chicago Blackhawks where Kyle Beach had been sexually assaulted, and his assaulter, who is a convicted sex offender, went on to assault a high school student. But one of the things that Kyle Beach had said was that he wished he had spoken up sooner because, in not doing so, he felt somewhat responsible for what happened to John Doe number 2. And John Doe 2's mother said, that's not on you.
Yeah. Yeah, she was
Right,
very
like-
clear with, that they're both the victims and the survivors of the assault, not anything to do with stopping it happening. Like, they're not the ones with the responsibility.
No. And I think one of the things we've seen, since this came to light, and it's just so asinine how people are trying to position like, well, don't put yourself in the position to be the victim. Why is it the victim's responsibility not to be the victim, right? Like the situation is that you have an offender, a monster, doing things that he should not have done. This is on him.
Yeah, and it's to do with power abuse and power imbalances. And if you don't understand that, then read up on it, because that's key.
But, that power imbalance is also completely ingrained within the culture that is hockey. I mean, we could actually talk about sport, like in the context of how these power dynamics exist, because it's not just men's hockey that's going through a reckoning. I mean, locally, we're seeing women's soccer, women's football having a similar situation where you had a power dynamic between a coach and a prospective player, where she was being put into situations where, like, the fact that even though she may not be thinking, like, I'm not entirely sure about this, the dynamic is such that, do I risk my career over this? That should not have any bearing on the situation. Like, you look at Kyle Beach, like, there is trust that's being misplaced, unfortunately, and that trust being violated. But yet the culture is such that you're almost expected to carry on.
The thing is, power imbalances in team sports are, they're necessary part of it. You need a coach being in charge of players. You need, you can't just have a group of 20-somethings deciding what they want to do. Like, that's what a coach is for. A coach can't run the team. That's what a GM is for. And you need those structures in place. But the point of the structure should be to take care of those below, not to exploit. And that's what we've seen happen here, unfortunately. And obviously it's more marked in a high schooler and a coach. That's quite an obvious power imbalance, and we've seen the sad effects of it. Like, listening to that interview today was it was really tough. Like, just like the Carl Beach one, it was very affecting. And
the point that someone may try to suggest that, well, if Kyle, I believe Kyle, it should not have happened, but had he spoken up sooner, nothing would have occurred. Let's also remember that Kyle did what he needed to do at the time. He informed those who should have been there to protect him and help him. And there was a failing. You had a failing on the Blackhawks, who decided that, we're so close to the cup.
Yeah, they decided that was more important. Like, Kyle Beach did report. He was told that the police would be involved. That never happened.
Well, and despite even, like, this is the thing, is that didn't happen. Let's say the Chicago Blackhawks did ultimately make the decision to part ways with this coach because of what had occurred. They allowed him to continue on in a career that put him in a position where he could continue to abuse. They knew. They can't claim ignorance here. They knew.
Yep.
Now, the other part of this puzzle, though, is it's not just the Chicago Blackhawks. The NHLPA, whose sole job is to look out for their players. And, we've talked about the PA and how they have a problem protecting players against players. Like, when we see sort of the player-on-player suspension issue, they don't necessarily focus on protecting the player who has been harmed in these type of on-ice incidents. This is a player and team. Like, you don't have an interest in the team here. You have an interest in the one person that has reported to you that there is an issue, and nothing comes of it.
I mean, look at the NHLPA. They have the worst deal in terms of revenue of any major professional sports league in North America. That's on one end. You see the whole concussion issue. Like, what have the NHLPA done to, advocate for their players and former players in that regard? Not a lot. Like, their main priority seems to be to get their players back on the ice, and that seems to have happened in all the negotiations that they've been involved with.
The one thing I'm not trying to protect the PA here.
No.
It has nothing to do with the situation. The NHLPA, in regards to contract negotiations, has spent a lot of focus on the guaranteed contract. So like an NFL player might have a huge revenue deal, but that contract isn't guaranteed. And if you're tomorrow cut, you're only getting the guaranteed value. Whereas the NHL is like, you want to cut our player, it's guaranteed. Okay, now they've started to waffle. There's the buyout.
Right.
But their focus has been, if you sign a deal, we're going to get you the money. Everything else is like secondary, tertiary, and so on and so forth. To your point, where but this is like my issue on this was that you got one thing that you have. That's nothing else. Protect your player, stand up for your player's rights. And the NHLPA and Donald Fair allowed for Kyle Beach not necessarily to be abused, but to allow for him and the abuse that he suffered to go unanswered.
Yeah.
It's one thing if the NHLPA went and tried to bang the drum and the NHL didn't answer. The NHLPA didn't even take the drum out of the drawer.
Yeah. I mean, I know Don Fair has called, for if the members want to support an internal investigation, but to me, what's that going to happen? What's that going to do? Like, investigate itself?
Did the results come out? If the players were going, because it sounded like the players were for this investigation.
I mean, to me, it did as well. I know they're not happy with how it's gone.
Yeah, but I think Rick Westhead, he raised it quite well. Like, what does this investigation do other than punish Kyle Beach?
Right.
He's going to have to, for the investigation to be credible, he's going to be interviewed. He's having to go through this, and he's going to have to relive this. He's going to have to talk about it. I don't think anyone here is questioning at this point that the PA let him down. I mean, Donald Fair has essentially said, yeah, we dropped the ball. And I just, at this point, wonder, I get that there's process that's required, but maybe it's move forward time. And this is where I think maybe, change does occur. Tied into this is that there is scuttlebutt that there are owners who are not happy with how this situation even came to be. There are some owners who are probably not happy because the situation is impacting the bottom line.
Yeah, that's 100% it. Makes them look bad.
Right. But the point is that there is this potential that owners, and a number of them, are saying we need to change. Like Gary Bettman had a job for life. The way he's, essentially, been the power broker. I can't think of any other league commissioner that has the power that Gary Bettman has. It seems like Gary's the boss and the owners report to him.
Right. I mean, yeah, they've 100% given him confidence and backing after all these years, but there was actually, just to go off the rails very slightly, the issue I mentioned at the start of last week's episode in relation to cricket that's going through a racism scandal right now. And one of the counties investigated itself, found they had done nothing wrong. And there's been a big pushback to that. And then the England Cricket Board has taken away their international games and, tried to punish the county. But there was a great headline that said the ECB is the accused, not the judge. And I think the same goes for the NHL. They are not the ones to sit above the Chicago and say, bad Chicago, you did wrong. They're part of the problem.
Well, the NHL would never, like, this is the situation, even if there is change. I can't imagine owners, if let's say there was a new person in place other than Gary, whoever takes over isn't going to come out and say, we done screwed up.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there are not enough owners in the NHL who would be willing to allow for that to even exist. This, again, goes to the culture of sort of the league. I think there are some owners that may, like, I'll look at the NBA and, Mark Cuban has faults, but if there's one thing that is relatively well known is the Dallas Mavericks, the team he owns, is a team that is willing to sort of push the envelope as to what culture, the sort of league culture should be about. I mean, there is a reason why the Dallas Mavericks were a team in the NBA who decided that, the anthems.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day, actually. I forgot that was the Mavericks.
And I should rephrase it.
But yeah.
The Mavericks didn't come out and say, we're not doing them.
They just stopped. And then they got told that in the state of Texas, we sing the anthem. And yeah. But I think you're right. I think I've maybe tarred all owners with the same brush, when I think there probably would be some progressive owners in there that wouldn't like the way the league is going. And then there'll be those that are concerned about reputation and ticket sales. And then there's those that just think the whole thing will blow over and they're not too worried about it. But I don't know if there's enough to make the difference. And they're the only ones that really can.
Yeah. I genuinely could not give you an NHL owner or ownership group where I could say they're truly progressive.
Yeah. I don't know of them.
I do believe like the Aquilini family, as far as NHL owners go, are progressive, but the problem is that they don't tend to lead. They're just the very first. They're very quickly the follower. Like, you know what I mean? Like sort of just as sort of we sort of look to wrap up. You had noted in the rundown, like, we see the Vancouver Canucks with the Indigenous engagement and like the land acknowledgement, like where you have teams that are saying, we are on this land. The Vancouver Canucks and the Aquilinis have embraced the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nation and involve them. And I like that they're going above and beyond the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But they could have been doing this a long time ago.
Yeah, I guess. That's my point, because I thought the Diwali night was really good and engaging. It was done completely the right way, engaging with the local community and like bringing that community to the forefront. But you only have to see how the NHL Fights Cancer night goes, which, don't get me wrong, is a great thing. But that's been going forever because it's easy. Right? Yeah, there's no...
You change all your advertisements to a pink color and you have your players warm up in a pink tone,
there's no
Pantone
controversy
jersey.
with that issue, right? There's no one that's going to say, we shouldn't engage with that. So I think the Canucks are slowly getting it, but I don't know. Things like when you see the land acknowledgement quickly followed by the Canadian national anthem, you just think, oh, you're getting it, but not quite.
Oh, but to use anthems as an example, we've talked about this. I think I'm a good sort of example of how I've evolved and I've come around. Like I was always, when the anthem was being sung, stand for the anthem, and I would almost be down on someone who chose not to, because I didn't. The thing was, I didn't care about why they weren't.
Yeah,
I cared about what they were doing.
Yeah,
said to me.
Right.
Well, what does it matter? But then I started to sort of open my eyes and see that this is truly a North American, spectacle. Like club level does not have anthems here. I mean, it's, and if they were to go away, does it matter? Like, no, actually it doesn't. Honestly, I'm here to play hockey, or watch hockey being played. Sorry. I'd love to play it, but
bring your skates to the next game we go to, just in case.
Yeah. But could you imagine the NHL just not having anthems?
I mean, I couldn't at all. I think they should.
I think, okay, this is the thing. I actually think the anthems could be dropped in a U.S. stadium, and depending on the state as to which they were stopped, wouldn't be an issue because I don't think anyone would really be
Possibly
all the wiser. There might be some because of the sort of U.S. Star Spangled Banner, stand loud and proud. But in Canada, it'd be front page news. It would be leading every news segment out there. There would be a conversation in Parliament. There'd probably be a motion on the floor from someone.
I mean, yeah, I will say that even I, like you, when I moved to Canada, like, because the anthem, it was a kind of a novelty. And I also kind of like the fact that, when Canadian teams played each other, you just had one anthem, and that felt like special in a way that you were just like, oh, hockey in Canada. And to me, it was just a song. I didn't grow up with any of the Indigenous issues, or I wasn't well enough aware of it. But yeah, when I began to engage with it a lot more, and it's not just the Indigenous issue, by the way, it's just this overblown patriotism that just I can't really get on board with.
Yeah, and it's more than just our show, the patriotism issue. I genuinely wonder if Canadian patriotism is something that exists because of the patriotism that is so ever present south of the border.
Oh yeah, it's completely related.
Right. And it's I don't know why it is the way it is down there. It's obviously a much different sort of, cultural embodiment within the United States. But the thing that you raised earlier, you have the land acknowledgement followed by the anthems, which right now seems so cringe.
I didn't think you were going to say the word cringe, but it works. It totally works. Yeah, I don't think I really have anything more to say on it. We could just leave it there, but that's my opinion. But
I did want to talk about Diwali, those jerseys. I really wish they could play in that jersey.
Yeah, I know. I was talking actually with my brother about it because the area we come from in London is strongly South Asian, so we've celebrated Diwali a lot. So he thought the jerseys were super cool, but yeah, I did have to explain that. When we did the 50th year, they had all these cool legacy jerseys. They're warm up only.
And it's you look at the football kit, back home, teams can have 4 or 5 different kits, different colored and style. I mean, not to the extent of this Diwali jersey, but then for those who are saying, Chris, it doesn't happen in North America. The Vancouver Giants have done in-game, real awesome sort of jersey creations.
Have you seen their Grinch jerseys?
Oh, it is.
I mean, they're slightly...
You can't buy them, and they should sell them.
They're slightly disturbing because of the tail element.
No,
but they are great. Having gone to the teddy bear toss, it's such good fun.
I just feel that it exudes a personality that is just lacking. I think, why is it the way it is today? Because it's the way it's always been. And in the way it's always been is part of a bigger issue about many things. If there was one way to change it's been the way it's always been. It's to focus on the areas that I don't think would raise too much of an issue.
Yeah. I mean, anyhow. I agree. It's just the whole team first, top down mentality that kind of ties into everything else, really.
Yeah. The Diwali jerseys, the game worn jerseys, which is another way of saying we wore them at practice. They were selling for $700. And if you want one now, go to Facebook Marketplace where people are scalping the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Because why not? People.
Yeah.
Anywho, as we look to wrap up our show, Vancouver Canucks are obviously back in action all week long. Which team will we see? I don't know. They'll be playing Anaheim tonight if you're listening on Tuesday. And then they're on a short road trip where they go to Colorado, Vegas, and Anaheim to wipe things up before coming back home. I don't know what to make of this road trip. They're going to lose to Colorado, probably lose to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, peace be with you, Canucks, because I pray for you. And I don't believe in any higher power, but I'm going to pray to the hockey gods or something.
The Anaheim Ducks, however, there might be an opportunity to be had there. I mean, they are playing well if we look at their division record, but it's not like they're that far above 500. So, I mean, there's opportunity. So yeah, we'll talk about it next week, of course, on the C4 Canucks Playoffs podcast. But speaking of talking about the Canucks between now and next episode, the place to do it is C4 Discord. That's discord.io/C4 podcast. We talk about, obviously, the Vancouver Canucks, things that are going on in hockey. We talk about the fact that Mighty Ducks Game Changers won't have Emilio Estevez because Ducks don't stick together, apparently. They just go quack, quack, quack.
Well, I could have told you after the first film he's a wrong one.
Yeah. I think if they bring back Joshua Jackson, like if they could figure that out, I don't know what Joshua's up to these days and whether or not he is on the same, train as Emilio happens to be on, but it would be pretty cool. Charlie Conway deserves a return into Mighty Ducks Game Changers. I'd be fine with that. But we talked about that in C4 Discord, obviously.
Yep.
The other places you can find us are on Twitter at DC4 Podcast and Facebook, facebook.com/C4 Podcast. Both are lively. I understand there are notifications and engagement on Facebook that Anna doesn't tell me about. But she manages Facebook. She is the Facebook, I don't know, owner?
I wish.
Do you own Meta?
God, that's another wrong one. Anyway.
What, Meta or the owner of Meta?
Both.
Or both. Obviously, we can also be reached in many other channels, but if you want to support us, it's just by subscribing, tuning in each and every week, supporting us on Patreon, taking part in the conversation, engaging us, saying hello if you happen to see us at games. Like Anna, she goes to games all the time. She is one of the rowdy bunch.
Yeah.
Who I have to ask you, there was a picture of the Larshiders section in that Nashville game. It was like, I guess, the return on the second period or whatever. And someone took a picture of all these empty seats and said, Larshiders, where are you at? And my first instinct is like, are they lined up to go to the can?
I would guess we were getting beer.
Well, I presume that too, but I don't know. Like, which is the worst lineup, the beer lineup or the Lou lineup?
It depends on your timing. But yeah, I always try and pack stuff into the intermission, so I'm never there. Speaking of, during second intermission, I went down to the 100 level and visited with friends of the show, the Canadian part of the Broads. So, and also friend of the show, Clarissa, aka Queen's Edge, work on Twitter. So I
did see that picture.
There is a cute picture of all of us. Obviously, sadly missing Mal, her being stuck below.
Well, I think there was a later picture.
There was a
where
Photoshop
she,
with her
made an appearance.
Well, terrible Photoshop, sorry, but it is. But yeah, also mate Grady, another friend of the show, Grady, Grady Sass on the Twitters. Yeah, it was great to actually see these people in person. Clarissa, I've never met in person. Grady neither. I have met the Broads, but only once, I think.
I don't think I have.
See, yeah, there was an International Women's Day meetup right before the pandemic hit. Or, yeah, right before we were forced to go home, so we watched a game at the Pint. So, yeah, I have met them before, but not seen them in obviously 2 years or year and a half, so it was a nice moment. We had a little masked meetup in the hallway. But we were smiling underneath the masks. Hopefully you can tell that from our eyes.
I was reading everyone's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, I will be at a game eventually too. I don't go to as many like Anna does because apparently I'm not a real fan.
Yeah, we knew that already though.
Or someone had told me this. I presume that's how it works, is someone on Twitter tells you you're not a real fan and you have to hand in your membership. But on behalf of Anna at 84603, myself, Chris at Lifeforce, sign off this episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com with We Out.